Hello and welcome to the distaff side, where we spin yarn, hand-spun yarn, using historical methods, and we keep the oral tradition alive through fairy tales. Everybody has their own way of listening best, and that's through busy hands or quiet hands. And so if you have busy hands listening best, then go ahead and get your craft supplies or your drawing supplies. And if you listen best with quiet hands, then go ahead and get cozy and snuggle in, and let's begin. As you can see, I am in front of the barn today in the barnyard, and we have an audience of chickens and maybe some goats watching us. I'm not sure if the goats are watching us or if they're eating right now. You'll probably see a lot of chickens, and you may hear some fun noises as we go along from them. And I hope it's fun, but not too distracting. You may also hear it's almost like a sizzling noise. Sounds kind of a mechanical noise you may hear, which is the cicadas are here for the rest of the summer in New York. It is July. It is a few days before St. Anne's Day. St. Anne's Day is on July 26th. And St. Anne in church history is traditionally thought of as Mary, the mother of Jesus, as Mary's mother. So Jesus' grandmother. And the Feast of St. Anne is on July 26th. And there's a saying that goes way back for weather, and we'll have to see if this is true for us. Rain on St. Anne's will continue for a week and a day. A month and a week. So 5 or 6 weeks. And I'm hoping that does not mean that we're going to have a very wet August. So you'll have to let me know if it rains on St. Anne's Day at your house, and if it rains all the month of August. So our fairy tale for today is, not our fairy tale. Our Mother Goose poem for today is: Gray goose and gander, waft your wings together and carry the good king's daughter over the one strand river. And a lot of these are so old. These were passed down for hundreds of years. And sometimes these names, gray goose and gander, waft your wings together, carry the good king's daughter over the one strand river, sometimes they're directions for how to get somewhere that they put into code messages for different reasons. Or they're a rhyme that reminds us of a fairy tale, like the one we're about to read. Really interesting stuff when you go to study the oral tradition and the traditions that we pass down through remembered things like fairy tales and Mother Goose rhymes. I'm going to be doing this a lot because it's very buggy out here. Not only am I near a barnyard, but it's also it's the end of July. It's the dog days of July, and it's a very hot and humid and buggy out here. So you'll have to let me know if it's hot and buggy where you are too. And you can hear my chickens making some really funny noises. They make really funny noises. They're a lot of fun. Now we can get started on our fairy tale. And the fairy tale that we are reading today is The Golden Lion from the Pink Fairy Book, which would be by Andrew Lang, who is the man who collected all the fairy stories that he found, the oral tradition stories, and put them into a collection of books called fairy books that are actually these oral stories, these oral tradition stories, and he color-coded them, and he has, I don't remember all the colors, but there's a lot of them. The first one is the blue fairy book, and the next one I think is green, but I'm not sure. Anyways, this one's from the pink fairy book, and it's about a lion, and I thought it would be fun to read a story about an animal while we are out here next to the animals. So let me get my spinning figured out here, my spindle and my distaff, and we can get started on our fairy tale for today. The Golden Lion from the Pink Fairy Book. There once was a rich merchant who had 3 sons. And when they were grown up, the eldest said to him, "Father, I wish to travel and see the world. I pray you let me." So the father ordered a beautiful ship to be fitted up, and the young man sailed away in it. After some weeks, the vessel cast anchor before a large town, and the merchant's son went on shore. The first thing he saw was a large notice written on a board saying that if any man could find the king's daughter within 8 days, he should have her to wife, but that if he tried and failed, his head must be the forfeit. Well, thought the youth as he read this proclamation, that ought not be a very difficult matter, and he asked an audience of the king, and told him that he wished to seek for the princess. "Certainly," replied the king, "you have the whole palace to search in, but remember, if you fail, it will cost you your head." So saying, he commanded the doors to be thrown open, and food and drink to be set before the young man, who, after he had eaten, began to look for the princess. But though he visited every corner and chest and cupboard, she was not in any of them, and after 8 days he gave it up, and his head was cut off. All this time his father and brothers had no news of him, and were very anxious. At last, the second son could bear it no longer, and said, "Dear father, give me, I pray you, a large ship and some money, and let me go and seek for my brother." So another ship was fitted out, and the young man sailed away, and was blown by the wind into the same harbor where his brother had landed. Now when he saw the first ship lying at anchor, his heart beat high, and he said to himself, "My brother surely cannot be far off." And he ordered a boat and was put on shore. As he jumped on the pier, his eye caught the notice about the princess, and he thought, "He's undertaken to find her, and has certainly lost his head. I must try myself and seek him as well as her. It cannot be such a very difficult matter." But he fared no better than his brother, and in 8 days his head was cut off. So now there was only the youngest at home, and when the other 2 never came, he also begged for a ship that he might go in search of his lost brothers. And when the vessel started, a high wind arose, and blew him straight to the harbor where the notice was set. "Oho," he said as he read, "whoever can find the king's daughter shall have her to wife. It is quite clear now what has befallen my brothers, but in spite of that I think I must try my luck." And he took the road to the castle. On the way, he met an old woman who stopped and begged. "Leave me in one piece, old woman," replied he. "Oh, do not send me away empty," she said. "You're such a handsome young man. You'll surely not refuse an old woman a few pence. I tell you, old woman, leave me alone." "You are in some trouble?" she asked. "Tell me what it is, and perhaps I can help you." Then he told her how he had set his heart on finding the king's daughter. "I can easily manage that for you, as long as you have enough money." "Oh, as to that, I have plenty," answered he. "Well, you must make it to a goldsmith, and get him to make into a golden lion with eyes of crystal, and inside it must have something that will enable it to play tunes. When it is ready, bring it to me." The young man did as he was bid, and when the lion was made, the old woman hid the youth in it and brought it to the king, who was so delighted with it that he wanted to buy it. But she replied, "It does not belong to me, and my master will not part from it at any price." At any rate, I will leave it with me. At any rate, leave it with me for a few days, said he. I should like to show it to my daughter. Yes, I can do that, answered the old woman, but tomorrow I must have it back again. And away she went. The king watched her till she was quite out of sight, so as to make sure she was not spying upon him. Then he took the golden lion into his room, lifted some loose boards from the floor. Below the floor there was a staircase, which he went down till he reached a door at the foot. This he unlocked and found himself in a narrow passage closed by another door, which he also opened. The young man, hidden in the golden lion, kept count of everything and marked that there were in all 7 doors. After they had all been unlocked, the king entered a lovely hall, where the princess was amusing herself with 11 friends. All 12 girls wore the same clothes, and were as alike each other as 2 peas. What bad luck, thought the youth. Even supposing that I managed to find my way here again, I don't see how I could ever tell which was the princess. And he stared hard at the princess as she clapped her hands with joy and ran to them, crying, "Oh, do let us keep that delicious beast for tonight. It will make such a nice plaything." The king did not stay long, and when he had handed over the lion to the maidens, who amused themselves with it for some time, till they got sleepy, and thought it was time to go to bed, but the princess took the lion into her own room and laid it on the floor. She was just beginning to doze when she heard a voice quite close to her, which made her jump. "Oh, lovely princess, if you only knew what I've gone through to find you." The princess jumped out of bed screaming, "The lion! The lion!" But her friends thought it was a nightmare and did not trouble themselves to get up. "Oh, lovely princess," continued the voice, "fear nothing. I am the son of a rich merchant and desire above all things to have you for my wife. And in order to get you, I have hidden myself in this golden lion." "What use is that?" she asked. "For if you cannot pick me out from among my companions, you'll still lose your head." "I look to you to help me," he said. "I've done so much for you that you might do this one thing for me." "Then listen to me. On the 8th day I'll tie a white sash round my waist, and by that you'll know me. The next morning—" my page. The next morning the king came very early to fetch the lion, as the old woman was already at the palace asking for it. When they were safe from view, she let the young man out, and he returned to the king and told him that he wished to find the princess. "Very good," said the king, who by this time was almost tired of repeating the same words. "But if you fail, your head will be the forfeit." So the youth remained quietly in the castle, eating and looking at all the beautiful things around him, and every now and then pretending to be searching busily in the closets and corners. On the 8th day, he entered the room where the king was sitting. "Take up the floor in this place," he said. The king gave a cry, but stopped himself and asked, "What do you want the floor up for? There's nothing there." But all his courtiers were watching him. He did not like to make any more objections, and ordered the floor to be taken up as the young man desired. The youth then went straight down the staircase till he reached the door. Then he turned and demanded that the key should be brought. So the king was forced to unlock the door, and the next, and the next, and the next, till all 7 were open, and they entered into the hall where the 12 maidens were standing all in a row, so alike that none might tell them apart. But as he looked, one of them silently drew a white sash from her pocket and slipped it round her waist. And the young man sprang to her and said, "This is the princess, and I claim her for my wife." And the king owned himself beaten, and commanded that the wedding feast should be held. After 8 days, the bridal pair said farewell to the king and set sail for the youth's own country, taking with them a whole shipload of treasures as the princess's dowry. But they did not forget the old woman who had brought about all their happiness, and they gave her enough money to make her comfortable to the end of her days. The end. And now, the best way to end a story, a really good story, is to go find somebody to tell it to, and to tell them all the things that you heard, or really anything that you heard, and what stood out to you and what interested you. And if you'd like to, I'd also love to hear from you in the comments about what you heard today and about whether you have rain on July 26th on St. Anne's Day, and what you think the One Strand River could be about. Lots of things to think about today, and I will see you next week. Happy spinning, or crafting, or cozying, and I'll see you again on the distaff side.